All right, so uh, my name is Brendan Hua. I'm going to be presenting on the anglerfish, also known as the specifically Johnsonii Gunther. Here's a clip from Nemo, everyone's favorite interaction with the anglerfish. So for taxonomy, we have the kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, and then we go into class Teleost with the premaxilla, homocircle tail, and leptoid scales. More specifically, once we go into the order, we have Lophiforms, which are like generally anglerfish, and they are defined by their first dorsal spine positioned near their snout, and they have modified that to lure prey, hence angler. Specifically, the family of black devils are known for their 11 dorsal fin rays and 6 or less anal fin rays. I will be looking at Melanocetus Johnsonii Gunther, aka black sea devils, or I think sometimes they're called humpback devils, but I'm not entirely sure if that's a separate thing. So for their range map, they're actually found really far and wide. Uh, from my research, I was able to find that they are basically anywhere deep sea is. So the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans all host a variety of anglerfish, and uh, in order to find like the definitive range map for one species is kind of difficult because they are deep sea, and it's hard to look for them in darkness and under such high pressures. So any definitive like range map would be difficult to find when considering that they could be somewhere else and we literally could not see them in pitch black darkness. So for their evolutionary history, since they are deep sea fish, it again is really hard to study them and it's really hard to find fossils. So I focused specifically on their unique advantages and like why they came to prominence in the deep sea. Uh, it boils down to two major points, which are bioluminescence and extreme sexual dimorphism. So for their bioluminescence, that is their actual like angler, as we call it, their lure. That is actually a symbiotic relationship with bacteria in order to produce light. And their extreme sexual dimorphism benefits them because they are able to attach the tiny dwarf males to their relatively gigantic females. And the male basically becomes functionally testicles for the female that she can use at any point to fertilize her own eggs that she produces. And that means that you're not spending your time swimming around looking for a mate. You can simply just mate at will. The bioluminescence is used for predation primarily. And I will go more into depth with these 2 points in the next few slides. So if you look at like a construction crane and how they can kind of swing around and they can raise up and their articulation, that's really similar to how the angler for the anglerfish works. Their entire body is basically built around the lure because in the deep sea environment, most fish rely on marine snow. And that's not the case for anglerfish because they are actually a form of predator. They actually hunt in deep sea, which is super interesting because they're also their main goal of anglerfish and most deep sea fish is to conserve energy. They don't move that often, and that's why their angler, also known as the icilium, is so important to their evolution because they're able to lure in other animals and effectively lure them straight into their mouth. The icilium bears esca, which is the little light bulb. The icilium is the main stalk. So the icilium, one of its evolutionary adaptations is that it's able to be folded backwards onto the dorsal surface, and it can rotate 180 degrees from the body and dangle in front of the mouth, and it can even articulate closer to the mouth. So if you are luring a fish in, you can move your esca even closer to your mouth so that your mobile premaxilla can just latch on to the creature without you having to, as an organism, lunge forward with your whole body. It's a great method of conserving energy when your food comes to you. They basically are constantly door dashing their own food. So the males actually lack a luring apparatus, and instead they have massive eyes with big nostrils. And those two adaptations coincide with the female's esca, because the big eyes are able to see the female's esca, and it's used for reproduction purposes. So they can use it to find each other in the dark. The female also emits pheromones that the male can sense with its nostrils. Once a male does find a female, their tissues can fuse together when the male latches on, and their circulatory systems can connect, and they become one. So without the luring apparatus, males are still able to be fed and nourished because they become a permanent accessory to the female. And like I said before, they basically serve as testicles. They create a form of hermaphrodism with the female because she's effectively able to have both sex organs at the same time after the male latches on. So the actual composition of the esca, I've attached a image that I found in one of the studies that I was looking at. It has a pore towards the front that is the opening, and inside the esca there's a reflective layer with pigment cells underneath, and then there's a small window where there's no pigment cells, and that acts as a window. Inside this is where all the symbiont bacteria live. It effectively works as a flashlight with a reflective surface behind the bulb so that it amplifies the light and can direct the light. So specifically, one of the interesting parts about the luring apparatus is that it houses another bacteria, and they have evolved symbiotically to work with each other. The anglerfish has evolved to give a housing to the Vibrana bacteria, and in turn the bacteria is able to produce light, which can help feed the anglerfish. The specifics vary from species to species among anglerfish, and they vary in genetics, but the main point is that they're bioluminescent, and anglerfish produce no light of their own. So the luring apparatus is able to house these bacteria for the anglerfish to use. The anglerfish's job is to supply nutrients to the bacteria, and in turn it'll give light. An interesting fact is that the anglerfish actually also manages the bacterial population, and it's the anglerfish's job to get rid of dead bacteria. And they've lost their ability to make their own amino acids, so they're fed by the anglerfish, and they have the genetic pathways to make flagellum, so they could technically leave it if they wanted to, but they don't. And that's the end of my presentation. Here are my citations. Thanks for tuning in.